Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshunaminitanjena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Guruve Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadbhaktaya Namo Namaha Yam Pravajantam Anupeta Apeta Krityam Rapayano Virahakatara Ajuhava Putreti Tanmayataya Taravo Binedus Tam Savabhutam Hridaya Munimanatosmi Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatam Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat Bhaktya Vihina Parada Lakshai Kiptashta Kamari Tarangamadye Kripa Maitvam Sharanam Prapanna Vrinde Namaste Charanara Vindam Tavevasmi Najivami Tvayavina Iti Vigyaya Radhe Tvam Nayanam Charanandike Vancha Kalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So, we're going to continue Sri Bhajan Rahasya and offering our most humble obeisance to the lotus feet of our beloved Gurus, unto Sri Guru Parapadmaniti Leda Bhavishta Om Vishnu Padasta Tajat Sri Srimad Abhayachan Aravinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Mahashila Prabhupada and Sri Guru Parapadmaniti Leda Bhavishta Om Vishnu Pad Asta Tajat Sri Srimad Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj, unto our exalted Rupanuga Guru Varga and all the assembled Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis. Okay, so we have completed text 1, which was the Turnad Api Sunichena verse about the qualities that we have to cultivate and develop before we can chant Shuddhanam, not just Namaparad, Namabhas, but Shuddhanam, and continuously, right? 4 symptoms. Natural humility, born of complete detachment from sense objects. Remember to make that connection. Detachment from sense objects. It's the only way that real humility is developed. Pure compassion, devoid of envy. And we talked about envy, right? And when we see others with more than we have. Even if we're in a very good position, we see somebody else with more. And how can you be compassionate and a well-wisher of somebody that you're envious of? You want to drag them down, right? Crabs in a bucket. Many of you don't know what that means. But if you grew up on, any place where people try to catch crabs to eat, after you catch them, you throw them in a bucket, and one crab will reach up and grab the edge, and start pulling itself out, and it almost gets out, and another crab grabs it by the leg and yanks it down, right? That's how it is. Or when people are drowning in the ocean, a lot of times when they find a whole bunch of people that are drowned together, some of the drowned people have footprints on their shoulders, from other people just pushing them down to get up, right? Your own desires. How can you have compassion? Purity of heart and freedom from false ego, right? Purity of heart. Wouldn't that be wonderful? And an attitude of respect towards everyone according to their position. How interconnected all these are, right? So then, Bhaktivinoda Thakur brings us to the features of surrender, right? This Sharanagati. And he quotes Hari Bhakti Vilas. This is a very important verse. You can meditate on all the parts of this verse all the time. Anukulyasya sankalpa pratikulyasya varjanam raksha shishtati vishvaso gopradve varanam tata. Translation of that is, I forgot, Atmanikshepa karpanye sadvida sharanagati. 6 types of surrender are 1, to accept that which is favorable to Krishna bhakti. Anukulyasya sankalpa. You make a vow, you make a statement, a commitment to doing that, right? Always day by day analyzing, minute by minute. Is this favorable for my bhakti? Is this a distraction Very high. Surrender is very high. Surrender is the gateway to bhakti. Pratikul yasya, to reject that which is unfavorable. To have the strong faith, Krishna will protect me, right? Rakshashishati, Vishvasho. Vishvasho means firm faith, right? That Krishna, he's my protector. And to have dependence, thinking Bhagavan will take care of me. Gopradve, Vadanam, Tatag, he's my maintainer, my only maintainer. Actually, we may hear here, I'm not sure, but these two things, that he's my protector and maintainer, these are really the foundation of Sharanagati, right? When you really have this conception deeply, then everything else follows, right? Very nicely. And without these two principles, that he's my protector and maintainer, the others be difficult to cultivate. And to be fully surrendered, Atma Samarpana, right? And then to be humble, Karpanye. So this relates very nicely to what we were just hearing. Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayana Maharaj explains the symptom of Sharanagati in one-pointed devotees is that they perpetually engage in service to their Prabhu and accept whatever he arranges. One-pointed devotees, that's important because this chapter is about nishta, eka nishta, right? Being one-pointed and fixed. And so perpetually engaged in the service of their Prabhu. Who's our Prabhu? Well, obviously Radha and Krishna is our Prabhu. Sri Guru is our Prabhu. Our Guru Varga is our Prabhu. Tulsi Maharani is our Prabhu. Giriraj is our Prabhu. But all these Prabhus are given to us. The gateway to serving all of them comes from Sri Guru. So we always have to hold that first and foremost. Because without that idea that I'm serving Guru, what am I, just making it up? This is that the problem with religions that don't have the sense of connection with Sri Guru, right? Because then everybody has their own idea of what's service to God, what's surrender, what's favorable, what's unfavorable. That's why there's so many divisions and subdivisions in these other religions. Even in Vaishnavism, there's different divisions, but if one is in a bona fide sampradaya, then everything is effective, right? What is that verse? Sampradaya vinehaye mantraste nishpala mataha. That if you have a connection through sampradaya, then your mantra, everything else has meaning. Without that, there's no connection. One time, I emboldened by the fact that people were not asking a question or speaking on a topic that Srila Prabhupada wanted discussed, which was Guru Tattva, I raised my hand and said, oh, Srila Prabhupada, we travel and preach, and there are so many people who follow a religion where they say Guru's in the heart. They don't need external Guru. They have Guru in the heart, Jesus, in other words. Jesus is in my heart. And he's God, so he can tell me what to do anytime. He's always speaking to me. And I thought that we would have a little back and forth about that, like you often hear on tapes, and then he would say something and I would give their argument, and then he would say something else and I would give their argument. Instead, he turned to me in front of 200 people, why you have said that. And he said it in such a deep and powerful way, I was completely startled and thrown off, thinking, uh-oh, this is not what I thought was going to happen. And I said, oh, well, for the purpose of argument. And he said, no, you have said because you do not know. And I thought, wait a minute, I know. I know the verses in the Bhagavad Gita, evam param para praptam, I know those verses. And I tried to say that, and he kept hammering me. No, you do not read the books. You do not know. Because you are a rascal. You have asked such a rascal question. And that moment, however long it was, it seemed like hundreds of years to me. But it's remembered in history at the place it took place, even to this day. Devotees that were there remember it because it's so powerful. Srila Prabhupada wasn't just speaking to me, he was speaking to everybody there, and I became the agent. And also, in retrospect, and down the line, I came to greatly appreciate that because he was cutting a very dangerous anartha, right? That you can proceed in bhakti without guidance of Sri Guru. And he also cut the anartha of Ritvik, that, Srila Prabhupada's the only guru, Parampara isn't needed any longer, he can be the guru for the next 10,000 years. That's Christianity, imposed on the concepts of Gaudiya Vaishnavism. But we always, we gain our strength, our validity through Guru Parampara, right? So engaging in the service of Prabhu means that, right? Sri Guru. And he quoted, who can have direct connection with Sri Guru? What is it? Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam pritipurvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yenamam upayantite. I give understanding, I awaken and give knowledge in the heart to those who Tesham satata yuktanam, who are always bhajatam priti purvakam, who are engaging in my bhajan with deep love and affection. Someone who's come to that platform of priti, of bhav, of love, they can access the Lord in the heart. No one else. See, and that's very rare. And even those persons, they're also eternally connecting out of love with their guru. Externally, that guru, and internally in Goloka Vrindavan. Right? There's always a line of guidance. Right? You read Jaiva Dharma and descriptions of the different groups of devotees who serve under guidance. Each group has a group leader. That group leader is under guidance of others, right? All the way up to Radhika herself. So, the symptom of Sharanagati in one-pointed devotees is that they perpetually engage in service to their Prabhu and accept whatever he arranges, right? That's tough sometimes. But like we said yesterday, the environment is always favorable. And we have this motto, if you don't like doing it, it's probably bhakti. Fighting against your false ego and your independent will, right? So, such devotees accept whatever punishment is given by Bhagavan as his mercy. They know that every action takes place only due to the desire of Krishna. Therefore, they unite their desire with Krishna's and thus remain peaceful. That's a very important concept. I'm going to go back to that in a bit. A devotee does not think that Krishna has sent him to this world to suffer miseries, but that he chose the miseries of the world by misusing his independence. The symptom of Sharanagati is that one gives up the false conception of being the doer and takes shelter of Guru and Vaishnavas. Guru and Vaishnavas, right? Not just, I only listen to my Guru and I neglect all others. All high-class Vaishnavas are aligned, right? And you can't really serve Guru if you have a sense of disrespect or lack of recognition and appreciation for Vaishnavas. That's why we say Hari, Guru, and Vaishnavas, right? The intrinsic characteristic, the Sarup Lakshana of surrender, is acceptance of Sri Krishna as one's maintainer, Gobradve Varanam. The remaining 5 symptoms are the marginal characteristics, Tatashta Lakshana of Sharanagati. So this idea that Krishna is my maintainer, everything follows from that. Sarup Lakshana, right? And he's my maintainer, that means he's the director of everything in this material world and spiritual world. Actually, all of that is acting according to the will of the Lord. When he said, devotees know that every action takes place only due to the desire of Krishna. Therefore, they unite their desire with Krishna's and thus remain peaceful. This is a very important understanding because sometimes we question, right? Oh Lord, why hast thou forsaken me? Right? Krishna, God never forsakes anybody. But everything is arranged for our purification, our gradual development, and sometimes forced surrender. When a child is repeatedly and arrogantly disobedient, they require to be disciplined, sometimes in a harsh way. Is that discipline given out of anger? No, the parent loves that child, and that discipline is given out of compassion and love. And so whatever we see in this world, it's ultimately meant for the direction of bringing us there. But then the question is, well, and this comes in Jaiva Dharma also, Bhajan says, well, the Lord, he's compassionate. Couldn't he think of an easier way? Why do we have to suffer so that the Lord can have these pastimes of deliverance in this world? Because this world is meant for our purification. It's also meant for the pastimes of the Lord. Couldn't it be easier? Why do we have to suffer so much? And the answer is given by Raghunath Das Babaji, that anything that results in a wonderful result, the steps to get there, could that be considered real suffering? And even in this world, to get wonderful things, you have to really struggle. And generally, after you've achieved that wonderful thing, people look back on the struggle and appreciate it. Oh, I did this and that, but it resulted in this. And they look back fondly at it. Soldiers, they look back on boot camp, right? Sports people look back on training and practice, right? Academics, they look back at long nights of studying and all. People who have a business look back when they started in their garage and all the difficulty and struggle they went through. It makes them appreciate the goal more, right? But there's something even deeper than that, because in the 16th and 17th chapters of the first canto, there is the story of Maharaj Parikshit chastising Kali, who's beating Dharma, the bull, the representation of religiosity, and Mother Earth, the cow. And when asked by Parikshit Maharaj, who has done this to you, he didn't reply directly. He said, some people say it's because of karma, some people say it's destiny, some people say this and that. He gave different indirect answers. And Parikshit Maharaj says, I can see you're a great devotee, because you're not blaming anything for what you are going through, right? You are seeing everything as coming as at the hand of the Lord. And then Srila Prabhupada explains in his purport that in this, by sometimes putting his own devotees into very difficult situations, like the bull, like the Pandavas, they were put into so much difficulty. They never complained. In fact, Queen Kunti said, let these difficulties come again and again. Because by experiencing these difficulties, we're always remembering you, praying to you, and thus we're seeing you again and again. Because you're coming directly to protect us, and we're also remembering and seeing you in the heart. So Srila Prabhupada says, in this way, Krishna is pleasing and glorifying his devotees. Oh, look how tolerant. Look how their love is never diminished. He shows the greatness of the devotee. And Kunti Devi reveals that they're never unhappy by that, because they're always remembering the Lord. And that is the point here, that when one is united with the Lord's desire, then are you under the effect of the modes of nature, or are you under the effect of something else? See, we can be surrendered and controlled by the external energy, and then we experience the slings and arrows of the material energy. Or we can be under the control and guidance of the internal energy and bathing in the waters of Ladini Shakti. When one has that mentality that, this is a pastime of the Lord, I'm somehow helping, then you don't feel anxiety, distress. You feel, however I can help and serve, that makes me happy. Right? That makes me happy. And that also goes, we think, well, God, what happens when we're finally liberated from all of this? What do we think about all these millions of lifetimes of horrible suffering that we've undergone as bugs, as spiders going around and eating everything and then getting eaten themselves by a praying mantis or something, and that's getting eaten by a lizard, and that's getting eaten by a bigger lizard, and that's getting eaten by a snake, and that's getting eaten by a jaguar, and that's getting eaten by an anaconda, and that's getting eaten by something else. Everybody's getting eaten. Jiva jivasya jivanam. The whole world is just one thing killing and eating another. And and we've gone through that. We have eaten everything, and we've been eaten by everything. And we've been in horrible conditions, suffering, in terrible forms of death, and we've inflicted that as well. And ultimately, though, we look. What happens is it becomes like a dream. Did it ever really happen at all? Like last night, you had so many dreams, and the night before. Maybe this morning you remembered some of them. You probably can't remember a single one of them now, even though, I don't know about you, but I get really involved in my dreams, thrashing around and when I wake up, but gradually it all fades, and it's gone. It's as if it never happened, because it was ephemeral, and this whole world is ephemeral. And then furthermore, especially in our suffering as devotees, then we can think, oh, but this is part of the Lord's pastimes of deliverance for us and us helping others. And this is the pastime he comes to experience and enjoy as Mahaprabhu, as the grand deliverer. Sometimes he comes in the form of the killer of the atheists, right, with weapons. But sometimes he comes as Mahaprabhu and takes pleasure, wandering here and there, benedicting and expressing and giving divine love freely. And this gives him the greatest happiness. So even in our pastime of practicing bhakti, he's seeing us struggle, and he's so much appreciative of the struggle that we're making. Srila Prabhupada used to give speeches like that, so much appreciating his devotees. And I've heard Srila Narayan Maharaj say that, I'm very appreciative of all my devotees in India, right? They're living in the mat, they're practicing bhakti on such a high level, right? Chanting a lakh every day and doing so much service strictly. But when I think of my devotees in the West, who have families and jobs and so many struggles and difficulties, and when I see them trying, nevertheless, against all those difficulties, even unsuccessfully, but still trying again and again, I have special affection for them. Special affection. See? So don't think that you're ever not the object of mercy and love of Sri Guru. So that firm faith that Sri Krishna will always maintain me, and that also means Guru, who is the representative, Gopradve Vardhanam. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Tesham nitya biyuktanam yogakshemam vahamyaham. For those who are always absorbed in thoughts of me, and who worship me by every means and with one-pointed devotion, I myself preserve what they have and carry what they lack. He also says, my devotees will never be destroyed. And that also is applied to us. See, this is Nishta, this chapter. We're trying to cultivate in our hearts. And it's there. Nishta is there, and it arises in our hearts, even if it only comes for a few minutes a day. It's there, right? And this attracts the attention and love of Sri Guru. And it's going to help us at every moment. And whenever you're feeling that distress, that weakness, that anxiety, that doubt, that despair, you just remember, Tesham nitya bhayuktanam, yoga kshemam vahamyaham. I always carry what you lack and preserve what you have. Just worship me, right? Just remember me. In the second and third verses of his Upadeshamrita, which we've covered, Srila Rupa Goswami has explained two of the marginal characteristics of Sharanagati: to accept what is favorable for bhakti, anukulyasya sankalpa, and to give up what is unfavorable, pratikulyasya varjanam. These two verses were explained in detail in the second chapter of this book, which we covered next, to some extent. So this is very wonderful. This is a very important verse assisting us in understanding this Trinadapi Sunichena, right? How to develop these qualities of humility, of tolerance, of compassion, right? Of offering respects to others, not expecting respect for oneself, right? These 6 symptoms, and it goes back. Remember, we'll just cite those things again so they stick in us. When we say thinking oneself to be even lower and more worthless than insignificant grass that's been trampled beneath everyone's feet, do you ever get upset and righteously indignant that you've not been treated right, or people did this or didn't do that in regards to you? If you're really humble, you're not expecting anything from anybody, right? Who am I, right? Being more tolerant than a tree, like a tree. What is he asking for? Nothing. Even if it's pouring rain out there, oh, get under me. I'll take the rain. You just take shelter under me. Oh, and while you're under there, you're stripping the bark and you're eating the fruits and cutting down some limbs to make a fire. No harm. I'm a tree. That's what I do, right? Tolerant, compassionate, prideless, offering respect to everyone, understanding their relative positions, but still offering respect, continuously chanting. Without these qualities. And so, how do we get the humility? Detachment from sense objects. In other words, conscious that we're not this body, and that our purpose in life is not the satisfaction, the gratification, the pursuit of sense gratification. The purpose of life is what we heard earlier, right? Yukta Vairagya, seeing everything in relationship to Krishna and using it in that way. And then, humble, but also towards others, compassion. But in order to be compassionate, devoid of envy. They're not your competitors. They're not your enemies, right? They're poor spirit souls struggling just like you. I want someone to be compassionate and helpful to me. If I want that for me, how can I not feel like that towards them? We're always praying to Sri Guru, oh, Guru, please help me. But then when we look at other people, and we're critical and not compassionate to them. How can we expect compassion and generosity of heart from Guru and Vaishnavas if we're not cultivating that ourselves? Jai Jai Shri Shri Radha Ramanchu Ki Jai Shrimati Lalita Shrimati Vishaka Shri Rupa Manjari Shri Rati Manjari Srila Prabhupada Srila Gurudev Jai. Freedom from false ego, purity of heart. Wouldn't that be nice to have purity of heart? And freedom from all the attachments and anxieties that false ego imposes on us. And an attitude of respect towards everyone, right? I mean, these things, favorable. Okay. So then, in that same vein, he quotes, Bhaktivinoda Thakur quotes this Mukunda Mala. He says, one must first give up false identification with this material body. Deha abhiman. Abhiman means that conception, right? And deha means that I'm this body. Idam shariram shatasandi jarjaram patatyavasyam parinama peshalam kim aushadam purchasi muta durmate niramayam krishna rasayanam piba. Okay. This frail body, which is even yours, is frail. Yeah. Sometimes you realize it, right? which is made of 5 elements and connected by hundreds of joints, is certain to decline. How many bones in the human body?
200 something.
Huh?
200 something.
It's like 216 or something like that, something like that. All the joints. Oh, God. It's certain to decline. I remember many, many years ago, this was about maybe 1998, 28 years ago, and we were in Badger, and Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Maharaj was visiting the house of one devotee and his elderly mother. And everybody that could go would go. And there was this whole group of young little teenage girls that went also. They grew up in Badger and in Hawaii and places like that. All these sweet little girls, they'd sing, they were all so cute. You can see them in these videos back then. And this guy's mother was there. And she's very old, Her face was like a map, like a road map. All those deep wrinkles, I mean, really just wrinkle, wrinkle, wrinkle. And saggy. And Gurudev pointed her out. And he said to all the little girls, you see her? You see her face? One day, you will be like this as well. Whoa. Anyway, Grandma got to engage in service in that way as being the object, But he was telling Grandma this, but he's also telling them. And they were little teeny girls, and I knew none of them could appreciate it. None of them could. It's impossible. Yeah, I will, but, God, that's like centuries in advance. Now, those same girls, they're all in their mid-40s. They've had kids, they're starting to thicken and, sag and all those things that happens when you get old. And I wonder if they're remembering back to that time. I still know them all. A lot of them still live in Badger. They got kids running around. A bunch live in Hawaii, other places. And in a few more years, they're going to be like that lady. It happens to everyone. So this frail body, which is made of 5 elements and connected by, this is the verse, connected by hundreds of joints, is certain to decline. Consequently, the body will be burnt to ashes, or will become food for worms and transformed into excrement. O foolish and wicked mind, you have decorated such a disgusting body with a senseless attachment. The elixir of Sri Krishna Nam is the only powerful medicine to cure this disease of material existence. You should constantly drink it by incessantly chanting Krishna's holy name. You can't stop what's happening to the body. So don't become overly attached or consumed or distracted by it. Take care of it like you would take care of a car, like that old Camry, right? Are we grinding out the rust in the roof and replacing all the grimy fenders and everything? No, we're just doing whatever we have to do just to keep it running in service, right? Without spending an inordinate amount of time and money on it. And pretty soon, we're going to leave that Camry. It's going to be, we're going to move on into another vehicle, right? Because that one will be no longer fit to carry us here and there and do what it's meant to do. But while it's in that state of decline, you only do what's necessary throughout your life. You have to take care of your health because this body is meant to be engaged in service. But overly involved and not worth it. Not worth it. So Srila Narayan Maharaj says, one should endeavor to serve Govinda and not painstakingly try to protect this short-lived temporary body. There's a challenge there. Sitting in a room, Srila Narayan Maharaj was there, and he was in his late 80s by then, and he had some distending in his belly, right? Which sometimes happened. He goes, when I was young, I did so much austerity, of fasting and this and that, and now because of that, my belly is sick and distended like this. Oh, maybe I shouldn't have done that. And he sort of laughed, right? Uh, because all of his austerities, all of his commitment to Bhajan. Now, we understand his position. He's exalted devotee from birth. But as a sadhak, in the mood of a sadhak, he's expressing, oh, because I did all this, my body is now experiencing a little bit more difficulty than it would have. At that age, you're going to be in difficulty anyway, right? If it's not this, it's this. If it's not that, it's that. And he was joking, actually. But by those austerities and that discipline, oh, look what's come. So much incredible realization, love, joy in bhakti. So, the austerity now, when you're young and strong, it pays off when you're older. A lot of people think, oh, yeah, I can, like Prahlad Maharaj, his schoolmate said, oh, Prahlad, why are you telling us all this? We're young, we're supposed to play. We'll do bhakti when we're older. No. First of all, you don't know if you're going to get older or not. When I was living in Hawaii one time, I was in Paia, little tiny town at the time. I don't know if it's still tiny. And I was walking out of a store, and I saw in the road a truck stopped and a little tiny child on the ground, motionless. And people around the child been hit by a truck, dead, right? Dead. Nothing anybody could do. Nothing anybody could do. And same thing happened in Vrindavan one time when we were on Parikram. We had like 15 buses, and they're going through a rural area, a very small road. And people are everywhere. That's India. They're everywhere. And one small child had run out and run under one of the buses and got run over. And of course, everybody freaked out. Little tiny child. And got squashed. And everybody was, the devotees didn't know. We just kind of shuffled everybody around so they wouldn't start gawking and rubbernecking and collect around there. Just keep going on Parikram, right? And everybody heard, oh, something terrible happened, but hey, keep going. We're on Parikram. And then that night, Srila Narayana Maharaj gave a lecture, and he told about that. Oh, it was an unfortunate accident. One child was killed. Fortunately, we weren't blamed for that, so the Parikram wasn't interrupted, right? And we went on with our Parikram. And I remember one devotee, nice devotee, he was very upset. What? He didn't express any tremendous condolence or remorse for that child to everybody. He was just talking about our Parikram, that we were able to go on. But then in that I could understand he was establishing a priority. First of all, the child was born in Vrindavan. And he died in Vrindavan at a very young age, like 2 or 3. So this was just a tiny bit of karma left. And that child was promoted to some very high destination. This is the reality in Vrindavan, right? And you have to keep that in mind. Even the animals in Vrindavan are souls that have committed some offense in devotion, but were devotees. And when they leave that body, they either take birth again as great devotees or they go to a spiritual destination. Nothing in Vrindavan is what it seems to materialize. But he was also making the point that the singular aim and object of our life is our bhajan, our development. There's no sentiment there, right? Mundane sentiment, just spiritual sentiment, right? Whereas people that are not fixed in that kind of knowledge, they're going to stand by the graveside and say, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. We don't know why so-and-so has been taken now by our Lord, and everyone's weeping, but we're confident that somehow, there's a plan and they must be in heaven. They don't know. They have no idea of step by step. They're just hope against hope, right? Which is better than no hope, some acknowledgement. But there's a system here. And it begins by understanding we're not this body. That's Bhagavad Gita, second chapter. We're not this body. Arjuna, you're lamenting for that which is not worthy of grief. Right? Those who are wise lament neither for the living nor the dead. We can be compassionate and we can be helpful, but we're not tied to this conception of this body that's meant to be burnt or eaten by worms or buzzards or wild animals, however they dispose of the body. So he says that Gurudev says one should endeavor to serve Govinda and not painstakingly try to protect this short-lived temporary body. No matter how much one tries to protect this body, which is made of 5 elements, its destruction is inevitable. Oh, remember that story I just said about that devotee and his old mother? This devotee was, I knew him a long time, he was a godbrother, and he was a kind of an herbalist, and he had all these formulas, and mineral supplements and everything, and he was so intent upon making a body as healthy as possible. And, I'm not going to say that his reasoning was wrong, prolong his devotion, whatever his motives were. But he was really strict, and he had a medicine for everything, every day, all these things that he would make, And he was saying, yep, you take this and even your hair won't turn gray. That's from lack of minerals. And wrinkles are because of this. And bad joints are because of that. And, everything he had a medicine for. He did so much research, consumed in it. And then he got a tumor. And the doctor said, oh, you have to operate for this. And he got scared. Instead of relying on his medicines, he went under the knife and he died on the operating table at 50, right? So when your time's up, your time's up. Told you when I was 4, my parents had a party and they were all there, and one of their friends had just died, and they were all in their 20s, right? In their suits and their, ladies with their hats and, 50s kind of party, everybody all dressed up. And they're all sitting around talking, oh, so-and-so, he's so young. And I was only 4, and I just piped up, hey! They all looked at me, we all got to go sometime. And they looked at me like I was some kind of diseased, creature. What is he saying? Where did he come from? And where that came from, I don't know. But I said it and became family lore, right? We all got to go sometime. And it's true. All those people in that room, they're all gone, right? Long gone. It won't be long before this body's also gone. So therefore this text says, O wicked mind, give up performing Ashtanga yoga, physical exercises, and so forth to keep this body fit, and only drink the nectar of Krishna's holy name. Only this nectar can liberate you from the cycle of birth and death. By the mercy of Nam, you will attain the eternal abode of Krishna and a transcendental body suitable for rendering service there. Then you will be engaged in your Nitya Seva. There you are. That's it. So that first part, until you become detached from the body, right, you can't become humble. That's what they're making the point, right? That there's no humility can't come, because when we're attached to the body, then what? We're in competition, right? Detachment is the first step. Then we have a whole different point. If we're not attached to the body, what are we attached to? We become more attached to our bhajan, our service, our relationships in a spiritual environment. We're cultivating activities, moods, sentiments favorable for that. So we'll do text 4 tomorrow, which is going to talk about being tolerant like a tree and compassionate to all jivas. All right? So we'll stop here. For our obeisance to our divine masters, to Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, to Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj, to all the Vaishnavas, great Vaishnavas in our Guru Varga, all the Vaishnavas, wherever they are, wherever they may be, all that ever were, all that ever will be. Gaura Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Okay.